Good morning, everyone. What a pleasure to be here with you for our 7th National Annual Conference. In the increasingly busy roles that you do and the ever-shifting context you all work within, I know how much you value spaces in which you can connect, within which you feel safe, you feel respected, included, and professionally challenged. I really hope that your presence here today indicates that you see our Forum Strategy National CEO Network as that space, because we hugely value each and every one of you and the diversity, perspectives, and ideas that you bring to this network. As a team at Forum Strategy, we look forward to continuing to work hard for you over the coming months and years so that you derive the value, meaning, and purpose that you need from your membership. Thank you so much for your commitment and for everything that you do for our children and communities across the country. Now, on to our theme for today as I open up our conference together. A wise woman once said, "We are not what we know, but what we are willing to learn." I think this is really pertinent when considering our focus for the day ahead, leading with contextual wisdom. A theme which is increasingly relevant in our rapidly changing educational landscape and society, and one which has listening, learning, and humility at its very heart. Things are not standing still. We have a government who, on the most part, appear to be demonstrating a willingness to listen and respond, which is good to see. And in return, we too must listen and understand where the shifts are likely to occur from the government, not only for our sector, but beyond it too. We've experienced over the summer, and in many parts continue to experience, a fragmentation and disconnect across our communities rarely seen before in such overt ways. And as a nation, we continue to experience significant cost of living crises, growing poverty levels, and heartbreakingly some of the highest levels of children's poverty, mental health decline, and dissatisfaction with life that we've seen for some time. Understanding our context is crucial if we are to turn these things around, and I very, very much believe that we can do it. As CEOs, and particularly CEOs within education, you impact so many lives day to day, year to year. The lives of children and young people that you serve, the communities you belong to, and the staff who work with you. It's a role best described as high in responsibility, but also incredibly high in reward. With so many people to affect, if you're anything like me, you want to do it right and you want to do it well. And to do that, we need that most often talked about special blend of experience, insight, skill, and wisdom. Wisdom in its broadest sense, yes, so that valuable combination of acquired experience and knowledge to inform our decisions and our direction. But I think we must go beyond this. Our work increasingly requires another type of wisdom that is firmly rooted in understanding the people we serve, the communities we belong to, and the colleagues we work alongside. And not only growing our understanding, but using it to respond in a way that our people need and they deserve. This is contextual wisdom. I must confess, when I joined Forum Strategy several years ago now, I felt reasonably wise. Wise in the sense of having plenty of experience, some skills to offer, and I felt a good amount of knowledge to bring to bear. However, I was aware from the very start I'd need to develop my understanding of and responsiveness to the sector, our members, and my team. And I'd need to do it fairly swiftly, but more importantly, I'd need to do it meaningfully. Particularly if I was to build upon the quality and value built by Michael and the Forum team, and to continue to demonstrate our connectedness to the sector, something which I hope and think Forum has become an organisation that has become synonymous with. So I went about growing my contextual wisdom in many different ways, from spending time getting to know the team, our members, our associates, and our partners, to spending time reading, watching, and reflecting, from undertaking trust visits across the country to receiving coaching and mentoring. Bringing all of this information and experience together has been eye-opening and has truly impacted my leadership in a really positive and valuable way. I'm a different leader now than I was in 2020, with the same values, attitudes, and many of the same skills, but with new awareness and insights, based on hundreds and hundreds of conversations that equipped me to be the CEO of Forum Strategy in 2024. But the work needs to be continuous. It doesn't stop there, because our contexts are constantly evolving and changing. So as CEOs, we must commit to carving out time for tuning in, to sharing what we learn from others, and importantly, then responding through our leadership in a way that takes account of what we've learned. And this is what our day ahead is all about: listening, learning, and responding. Our contributors each come with different backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives to draw upon, and they offer some really up-to-date insight, intelligence, and ideas to learn from. So Steve Lancashire will start the day with delving deeply into the CEO role and the importance of contextual wisdom to leading well. Luke Trill will then set the national context, touching on key societal shifts and trends for us to be aware of. And Longfield leads on from this to share the lived experiences of children and young people up and down the country, including ideas on how we respond to some of this. After lunch, we hear from Tessie Ojo about the experiences and realities of our communities, again, considering how we as trust leaders respond to that. And finally, Jeppe Hansgaard joins us all the way, as Maggie said, from Denmark, to talk about how we better listen to, understand, and connect with our staff to truly enable them to thrive. Hearing from our contributors alongside the opportunity to connect with one another throughout the day offers us as CEOs a really unique opportunity to continue to grow and build our contextual wisdom so that we lead from a place of knowledge and understanding. Another really important way in which we can generate contextual wisdom is through the partnerships that we form, something we refer to regularly across Forum. We must accept and recognize that as CEOs, we can't possibly be expected to know everything ourselves, but we can significantly expand our knowledge and wisdom through the connections that we make with local and national organizations. Through these relationships, we grow our reach and we can learn from some of the feedback that they have to share. These partnerships have always been integral to our work at Forum, and we consider our partners to be an important part of how we provide the best support and offer to you as our members. You've heard from me and our partners about what we consider contextual wisdom to be, so I hope that's helped your understanding. But how can you, as CEOs, develop and strengthen your own contextual wisdom? I believe there are three key principles. Firstly, we must cultivate a deep understanding of those we serve. That means going beyond surface-level observations to gain a deep insight into the cultural, socioeconomic, and emotional factors that influence our young people, staff, and communities. Spend time in your communities listening and engaging, as so many of you do day to day. Undertake regular conversations with parents, teachers, and young people and listen to their stories. Understand the challenges they're facing outside of school, the values they hold dear, and the hopes that they have for their futures. It also means meeting and cultivating partnerships with other public sector leaders and workers, charities, local employers, and others to learn from their experiences and their perspectives. This deep understanding will inform your leadership and your decisions and ensure that they are rooted in the realities of those you serve. There's a great quote from the leadership thinker Stephen Denning on the importance that listening plays in bringing people with us. He says this: "We usually spend a great deal of time thinking about what story we're going to tell. But the hard part of communication is often figuring out what the story is that the audience is currently living. If we're to make the imaginative leap and get inside listeners' stories, we need to have a very different relationship from the traditional hierarchical managers. Instead of talking down to people, we need to talk with people. We need to be conducting conversations with the people we hope to lead." And research by the Harvard Business Review also backs this up. They identified 4 key behaviors that set successful CEOs apart from the rest, and one of these was impactful engagement with stakeholders. They found that CEOs who deftly engaged stakeholders were 75% more successful in their roles. So it's clear, the very best CEOs are the ones who take time to deeply engage with and understand the people they serve. So some questions for us to consider. Are we committed to listening and learning? Are we making it an integral and habitual part of our roles as CEOs? Is it becoming an integral part of our leadership culture? Are we protecting this part of our job when other operational pressures and demands come to bear, as inevitably they always do? And are we listening in a way that demonstrates authenticity and inclusivity and genuinely informs our strategy and direction ahead? The second key principle relates to how we embrace flexibility and adaptability. Contextual wisdom requires a willingness to be flexible and adaptable. As a CEO, this will mean developing a mindset that balances the need for stability and continuity with being open to adjusting your plans and strategies based on the evolving need of your communities. This can mean rethinking traditional approaches or experimenting with innovative solutions that are better suited to your specific context. For example, during the pandemic, leaders in education had to pivot rapidly to remote learning. Those who were able to adapt quickly and effectively were often those who had recognized the unique challenges of their communities, such as access to technology, home learning environment, mental health, and they responded accordingly to that. Another example of this is the cost of living crisis we continue to face up and down the country. On my visits to trusts, I've seen the way so many of you have had to adapt what you do to support children and communities in severe need. Everything from offering food and clothes banks to forming business links to bring in further income or supplies. This ability to pivot and adapt underpins organizational success. In a report by McKinsey, they found that organizations that embrace agility can improve financial performance, customer satisfaction, and employee engagement. It showed that agile organizations are 1.5 times more likely to outperform their competitors on financial metrics and 2.7 times more likely to be top performers on non-financial measures like customer satisfaction and employee engagement. It also underpins success in the CEO role. CEOs surveyed by KPMG as part of their global CEO Outlook report identified agility as one of the top capabilities necessary for future success. When we are adaptable as leaders and as organizations, we remain ready to respond to changing needs and demands. Something we all know has been a constant state in education, particularly over the past few years. So as before, some key questions to ask ourselves. Does our leadership culture allow us to adapt and refine our plans as we go along, allowing us to question and evolve? Do our organizational structures and the hierarchies that we have encourage or dissuade adaptability and nimbleness in response to new challenges and opportunities that might emerge? Can we ensure that in being adaptable, we also stay true to our values and long-term mission for the organization and avoid becoming too reactive or malleable? These are just some questions as CEOs in this evolving context we need to keep asking ourselves. And thirdly, we must adopt a learner's mindset and build in regular reflection time. Reflective leadership with a learner's mindset at its heart is about regularly assessing and reassessing your actions and your decisions. It involves asking yourself, is it working? If not, why? What can we learn from this? By cultivating a habit of reflection, you develop the ability to learn from both your successes and your failures and to refine and adapt your approach over time. Reflective leaders also seek feedback from others. They create that culture of open communication where teachers, young people, and parents feel empowered to share their perspectives and their views. They create this through formal and less formal opportunities, but it is always intentional. And this feedback loop is essential for developing the contextual wisdom to lead effectively in that complex and changing environment we all experience. CEOs who develop contextual wisdom regularly carve out the time for learning opportunities in a range of different settings. Everything from courses and training to networking and connecting, reading reports, listening to podcasts, attending conferences, the list goes on. This stuff is no longer a nice to do. It's an essential element of being a CEO in 2024, and our diaries absolutely need to reflect that. As the learner-in-chief within your organization, you have the opportunity to develop your own wisdom, but you also can model this to your staff around how they can develop theirs too. Modeling reflective skills and a commitment to learning helps to create that organizational structure and culture within which these things are understood and valued from you as a leader. This galvanizes staff across your trust to also commit to reflecting and learning. After all, isn't learning our core business? When our organizations, as well as us individually as leaders, commit to continuous learning, we also help to develop organizational wisdom from which we can draw as CEOs. So again, some questions. How are we modeling the importance of continuous learning and reflection? Are we protecting time each week to learn something new and generate contextual wisdom? Which organizations are the ones that are going to help us to continually learn, reflect, and develop? So what's the impact of all of this? What's the impact of contextual wisdom? When you, as CEOs, exercise contextual wisdom, the impact on your children, staff, and communities can be profound. Decisions are more likely to resonate with those that they affect, and that leads to greater support and greater engagement. That, in turn, fosters a more positive climate where everyone feels heard, understood, and valued. Alongside this, contextual wisdom allows for more equitable leadership. By taking into account the diverse needs of your community, you make sure that your decisions seek to support inclusivity and belonging, creating an environment where all have the opportunity to succeed. But of course, developing and exercising contextual wisdom is not without its challenges, and we do recognize that. One of the biggest obstacles you'll find is time. As CEOs, you are often stretched thin, balancing multiple responsibilities and lots of different demands. Finding the time to engage deeply with your community, to read, to learn from others, to reflect on your decisions and adapt your strategies can be really difficult when you've got so much to do. And if you're nodding along to this, be assured that this is something that most CEOs experience. A study by Porter and Noria tracked the time allocation of CEOs over a 3-month period. Its key finding was that CEOs struggled to carve out alone time for thinking and reflecting. Where they did find time, it was often fragmented into blocks of 1 hour or less, with the research concluding that CEOs need to cordon off meaningful amounts of time and avoid dissipating it by dealing with immediate matters, especially in their inboxes. If we can overcome this challenge of time and protect the necessary time to look outwards and reflect strategically, as well as reacting to the operational, this can be a defining moment for us as CEOs and our leadership. Having a great team around you as CEO will be one of the biggest enablers you'll find here. By having the right people in the right roles with the right skills, it allows you to keep your role as strategic as possible, and within that, spend the time developing intelligence and wisdom that's needed to ensure everyone is working to the right set of goals. Linked to this, I also think many of us feel a sense of guilt or unease with carving out time to reflect, learn, and listen, particularly when times are busy and when we are dealing with competing demands. But this is exactly where as CEOs we need to be bold. We need to be the ones to reinforce the importance of this to the organization and demonstrate our commitment to it by regular, protected, visible time in our diaries and the encouragement of all across the organization to do the same. Another challenge you'll find is this pressure to conform to standardized or national practices and policies. While these are, of course, really, really important, they can limit your ability to tailor your approach to the unique needs of your communities. It takes courage to sometimes push back against a one-size-fits-all mentality and to advocate for solutions that may not fit neatly into established frameworks, but are ultimately the right ones for your community. This is where the numerous important discussions around accountability are really focusing in. How do we enable national consistency and standards while really balancing the need to take account of context within this? So, as I finish my input for this morning, I must conclude on this. The generation of and subsequent application of contextual wisdom is an essential part of leadership, particularly so in public services and particularly so in education. It requires us to have a deep understanding of our communities, a commitment to flexibility and adaptability, and requires us to continually adopt a learner's mindset. While the challenges are real, the rewards are significant when we make time to, as we are today, develop this wisdom. In developing contextual wisdom, we ensure our decisions are made with insight, empathy, and a true understanding of what will best serve our young people, staff, and communities. And this commitment to learning goes to the very core of who we are and our very purpose as leaders and as organisations. I encourage you to cultivate this wisdom as often as you possibly can. Listen deeply, reflect often, and never be afraid to adapt your approach to meet the unique demands of your communities. In doing so, you will not only lead more effectively, but also create a lasting positive impact on the lives of those you serve. Thank you.